I'm here to tell you, I don't care what the temptation is, I don't care what the struggle is, even if it's something crazy, you are not the first person to have gone through it. Because we got to know the way the enemy attacks us. We got to know our temptations and our weaknesses. We got to know the areas we have to be on guard against. We have to get to know ourselves, and we have to get to know what we need to go to God for help with. We're talking about temptations, y'all. Like once upon a time, if we're being real, we'll just talk about our society as a whole, it kind of seemed like temptations were probably more few and far between years and years ago. Years and years ago, you'd have to be like hanging around someone that's doing something to take part in it, or you'd have to like go to a bar to try to hook up with people, or you'd have to go to the mall to spend money, or maybe you'd have to like drive to Walmart to get a carb load of groceries, right? Or maybe if you had to drive to the ice cream shop. Right? Whatever it is, whatever temptation we could think of, it's kind of like it took some work and effort to get there, is my point of that, right? And then America went and did probably both the greatest and the worst thing that could ever happen to us as a human society. It went and made everything convenient. Convenient, right? Like now there's no need to go anywhere to meet people. We got dating apps right at our fingertips. You can find someone to hook up with 24/7, 365 by just pulling an app up on our phones, right? You can also look at anything you want for your viewing pleasure by just pressing a couple buttons. I love y'all spaces when I say that, like no one in here. But that's between you and God. But it's real, right? The temptation's right there. It doesn't take much to access it, but a couple clicks. The mall, that's old news. We got online shopping, 24/7, 365, right? And the best is that most of those things, they got a promise to be on your doorstep the very next day. Just press it and that driver's going to deliver it to us, right? Enter that credit card info and off you go. Oh, and don't worry, if you can't pay for it, we got you there too. We got Affirm, we got PayPal credit, right? We got Pay in 4, whatever you need. We're going to make sure you get it instantly whenever you want it. Anything can be delivered straight to your home if the price is right. You don't even have to go anywhere anymore, right? But think about it, guys, like there's so many temptations. Temptations are in the palm of your hands. If you're having a rough time, you can take that remote control and turn on some Netflix and you can just get lost for hours. Like real life doesn't even exist. Or pull up your phone, start scrolling through social media, before you know it, it's 11 something at night. Convenience, right? Conveniently ready for us 7 days a week. But that brings a new level of things that we need to watch out for when everything is that conveniently accessible for us, right? First thing I want us to get tonight, temptations are everywhere around us. Most are conveniently available right at our fingertips. Not to mention the temptation to let our character defects run wild. We didn't even talk about that yet. But now more than ever, guys, we must stay ready throughout each day as those desires and impulsiveness start to rear their ugly head. You with me on that? All right, here's what I want us to get tonight. Stay ready, be vigilant, and have a game plan. That's right. That's what this whole series is about. What are things that are going to come against us in our life that we need to stay ready and on guard against, right? We were just talking about physical temptations there. We didn't even talk about the temptation to let our character defects run wild, right? Like we haven't talked about the temptation of letting our anger just get the best of us over and over again and just giving into that impulse and desire to just go off on someone and just let them have it any time that we please, right? Or maybe, man, maybe it's the opposite. Maybe it's the temptation to just sit quiet and blend in and hope that no one notices me, and so that isolation and that self-pity can start to kick in because I'm comfortable here, right? I've been on both sides of that. Guys, whatever it is, I want to make sure that we get this, whatever we're dealing with. We got to stay ready. We got to be vigilant. We got to have a game plan. And so 1 Corinthians, it's actually just one verse, my bad. 10:13 out of the NIV says this: no temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. Short and sweet, right? But we could preach a whole entire message on just this one verse alone, right? So let's just focus on this. Let's just start out with that beginning part. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. I think that's really, really important, y'all. I think that's something that we need to make sure that we understand walking out of here tonight. Let me share with you a deadly mindset that we need to be on guard against at all times. The old, no one will understand. Nobody gets me. Nobody's going to understand the way I feel, right? No one knows what it's like to be me. They just don't get it, right? And so because they don't get it, then I'm just going to stuff it. I'm going to keep everything inside. I'm not going to tell anyone about it because they don't get me anyways. And I'm just going to keep it all in and wallow in my own self-pity, right? Let me tell you something. That's a lie straight from the enemy, y'all. That's a lie straight from the enemy. Enemy wants you to think that. He wants you to sit there and think no one understands. No one's going to relate to what I'm going through. I've heard him talk about a couple things, but they never been through this hard. Whatever I'm going through, this rough season, they're not going to understand. I'm not going to talk to anyone about it. I'm just going to keep it all inside and keep it all to myself. That is absolutely the worst thing that we could do, y'all. And so I'm here to tell you, I don't care what the temptation is. I don't care what the struggle is. Even if it's something crazy, you are not the first person to have gone through it. You are not the first person to ever struggle with that. Like, let's just start with the Bible alone since the beginning of time. Like Adam and Eve, I don't have time to unpack all these stories, but it's real quick. Adam and Eve, like the bottom line is like they wanted to know everything. They wanted to be equal to God. Like that was the lure of that. It's like, man, we could be equal to God. We can know everything. Let's eat that fruit. The temptation to know it all and control everything and to play God got them, right? Noah got drunk as a skunk, and he did some things that he probably regretted later. Sure, some of us can relate to that, right? The temptation to get drunk excessively got him. All right, Lot and his wife, they wanted more. They were never satisfied with what Abraham was trying to do for them. They always wanted to pick the best of the best for themselves and go to the spot where it was happening. And when God said, no, I'm trying to move you out of here, don't look back, what did they do? They were never satisfied. They disobeyed what God was trying to tell them. The temptation to want to go back to things that were not good for them got them, right? David, man, he had all his sexual needs taken care of by all his wives. Yes, I said wives, plural. That's a whole separate conversation there, right? But think about that, right? Like wives, plural, but instead of that being enough for him, no, he found someone else's wife, Bathsheba, and he wanted her, and so he wound up taking another man out to be able to have access to his wife. The temptation of lust got him. Ananias and Sapphira, they kept money back instead of donating it to the Lord. Is that of in itself a sin, right? It's biblical to give. I believe truly that we should all give God his just dues. We should give God his part because of everything that he's done for us. I support, right? Supporting our churches, local nonprofits, giving to someone directly that's really in need, right? Those are all important, right? But the worst thing is they lied about it. They lied about it, and it cost them everything. The temptation of greed and covering things up got them. And that's just a few stories, right? We could go on and on. I want you to understand the point is of all that is it's men and women. It's all different areas of temptation, right? It's happened since the beginning of time. I promise you, you are not the first person to go through it. And so we got to know that. Number two, you are not the first person to go through whatever struggle or temptation is upon you. Resist the urge to think that no one understands me, so I'm not going to reach out and I'm just going to keep this all to myself. We need each other to overcome whatever we are currently experiencing. And so if we're going to walk out of here, and we got to guard against that, the next time you think that, you got to tell yourself that that's a lie, man, because it is a lie. There's someone out there that's gone through it. You're not the first person. And even better is to find someone who has gone through a similar temptation or struggle to be able to help you out a little bit. I can promise you, you're not the first person to go through a slump while they're in their sobriety. I promise you that. I believe some people in the room that are going through a slump right now as we speak, right? I promise you, I've been there. I promise you, I go through slumps to this day, right? But I have guys in my life that help me out through these times because they've been there, and I can turn around and I can help you out through it, right? Because I've been there, done that. And so, guys, we got to try to find people who are, going through that same temptation, that same struggle that we've been through. Like, you're not the first person to allow their anger to get the best of them over and over again. I promise. Maybe it's this, maybe it's something, man, you thought you buried it. Like I put that on my 4th step. Right, I did the 5th, like everything's good. I haven't struggled with that in a long time. I'm here to tell you, 11 years into it, something can come back. Someone can take you to the brink and it'll rear its ugly head again. And you're like, man, I thought that person was done with. No, he's back. Right? Whatever it is, guys, you're not the first person to be tempted with it. But the enemy wants you to think that it's just you. So I can get them to keep them to themselves. I can get them to wallow in their own self-pity. They're not going to tell anyone about it. It's going to get worse and worse and worse. And eventually, isolation is the spot where the enemy has a field day with us. If I could isolate them off from God, isolate them off from each other, I got them. Real easy, right? So make sure, guys, that we all stay on guard against that. That makes sense? And the next little piece of that verse there. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. I love this one. Right? Because I feel like this is probably one of the most popular misquoted quotes of the entire Bible. And I hear a lot, I hear people say like, oh man, it says there like that no temptation can come upon us. Like it's not going to be more than we can handle. God's not going to give me more than I can handle, right? Haven't you heard that before? and so I get what they're saying. I get what the context of this verse is saying. But here's the thing we need to remember. If we could handle everything, then we wouldn't need God. Right? If it was just like I come to Jesus and I give my heart over and then from then on, I got this. I'll take care of it. I can do anything. It's not more than I can handle, right? I'm telling you, it's not going to end well. But that's a recovery special, though, isn't it? Like, Jesus, I'm turning my life over today, and then I'm taking the wheel back, God. I got this from here. We're good. I appreciate the little bit of help. Thanks for getting me sober. Thanks for doing a couple things for me, but I'll take back over, Lord. I'll get back in the driver's seat. I got this thing. I'll steer it. I got this. No. It's not more than if we could handle it, we wouldn't need God, but we got to read the rest of the verse, right? It says he's not going to give us more than we can bear, but it says when we are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that we can endure it. And so what that tells me is if we're active and we're close to God, if we have that good spiritual connection going, right? If we go to prayer and go into prayer and ask God to help us through whatever we're going through, well, that tells me that we can get through anything. And it's not going to become more than we can bear. Why? Because we know we got God to help us through it. And so therefore I can be strong because I'm weak, right? Because of my weakness, that forces me to go to God, and then God steps in and he strengthens me to overcome it and to be able to move past the temptation or whatever struggle that I'm going through. That makes sense? Like, I think sometimes we might make ourselves a little more helpless than we actually are. And I'm just going to speak for myself on it. I'm going to be open and honest with you about some things in my life. You know, I'm just going to be real. Like, I think about this because sometimes it's always the old, well, I just got today and I get that, but I never know if I'm going to go back out. I get what they're saying, right? I understand that we can't say I got this and say we have it all figured out, right? But if we know that if we stay locked in on God and our sobriety every single day, I'm telling you, we got to know that we're not going to go back out and use drugs or alcohol. And sometimes I ask myself, why do I have such a struggle in this area? Like, a perfect for instance, like, I'm not going to cheat on my wife. It's just not going to happen. Right? I just promise anyone in here it's not going to happen, right? I'm not going to go into a store and steal something and walk out with it. It's just not going to happen. And I can look anyone in the face right now and tell you I'm not picking up drugs or alcohol and putting them into my body. It's just not going to happen. Why? Because I know I need to stay focused on God and sobriety every single day. So I can tell you that wholeheartedly, right? Now I got to know myself because the cheating was just never me. Like, I don't know. I'm just a person, like, if in the past relationships, like, if we're done and I want to go talk to other women, then we're just done. Like, I'm going to break up with you and I'm just going to keep it moving. That's not one particular area that I really struggled in. Right? Now the stealing, that happened a lot in my previous life. Right? So I definitely couldn't tell you that I wasn't gonna steal, but now that I'm on the right path, right, and now that I'm speaking in jail and I'm helping people out that were once in the same place I was, I don't want to be in the gotcha again. Right?
I want to stay there, gotcha.
Right? No, it's done? No. All right, well, I don't want to be in a Manatee County Sheriff's app. Right? Whatever it is, I'm just not trying to break the law anymore. I got no reason to go into a store and steal something from it. So that's not going to be something that I'm probably going to struggle with. Now, the using, I couldn't look you in the face and tell you that same statement 10 years ago. I got 11 years sober. 1 year, 2 years in, I probably couldn't look you in the face and tell you that same statement because it was still a struggle for me, right? There were still things that popped up constantly. I wasn't where I'm at now, like mentally, physically, and spiritually, right? And so the point is, this is what I want you to get out of that, if that made any kind of sense to you. We have to get to know ourselves, and we have to get to know what we need to go to God for help with. Does that make sense? We got to get to know ourselves, and we got to know what are the areas that I really need to go to God to get his help with. I don't need to pray every day, Lord, help me not to talk to another female. Because I'm telling you it's not going to happen, right? I'm transparent with every conversation I have with my wife. My life's an open book. She can look at anything, anytime. We don't need to check each other's phones because we're not going to do each other like that. We're in a committed, faithful relationship, right? You understand? I don't struggle with that in any way, shape, or form. But there's some people out there that do. There's some people that they need to include that in their prayer life on maybe a daily basis, a weekly basis, right? I don't need to pray, God, help me not to steal. Because I'm not going to steal, right? But I know some of y'all are kleptos, man, and y'all just go in there. It's like a habit. You just got to grab something and put it in your pocket. I'm not going to lie. I stole some things sober. Like, it just happened after you do it for so long, right? The first year or two, you just put it in your pocket, and I walked out, and oh, man, God forgive me later on the back end, I guess. It's almost like it's a habit. But the point is, if it's something that you struggle with, then you need to pray about that often. You understand? Right? Like I don't have to pray every single day anymore. Lord, help me, keep me away from a drug or a drink. I pray about it occasionally. I pray about it when I have thoughts in my mind. I go back to it every week or so and be like, God, man, thank you so much for my sobriety and everything you've done. Help me to never put a drink or drug or mind or mood or altering substance into my body ever again, right? I go to it from time to time, but I'm just saying, maybe if you're listening to this and you got a month sober, it needs to be part of your daily prayer life, maybe your hourly prayer life, right? Because you got to get to know yourself and know what the things that you struggle with. I have other temptations these days, right? I have other things that I struggle with in my current life. I'm not going to unpack those all right now, but it's more so, right? I'm going to tell you what happened. I identified the things in my life that I know pop up. I've gotten to know myself well enough that I can look you in the eye and people that are close to me and say, this and this is a problem, right? And so I'm in prayer about those things, and I share those things with people that will hold me accountable. You understand? Right? We all need to know ourselves well enough. I put know ourselves as the fill in the blank there, because remember we talked about this the past few weeks? This series is to help y'all know yourself, man, because that's important. We all need to know ourselves well enough to know that temptations we are currently, the temptations we are currently struggling with in this season. And once we have identified those, we have to be willing to be in prayer about them and have people in our life to hold us accountable. And when we do that, right, that is the way to not be tempted past or beyond what we can bear. We got to know the way the enemy attacks us. We got to know our temptations and our weaknesses. We got to know the areas we have to be on guard against, because I could pass the mic around. It's going to be a different set of things for every single person in here and watching online, right? And then we got to identify those things. We got to be open and honest and transparent enough that once that happens, like, we got to identify and be like, yep, that's me. Yeah, I got to be real. I struggle with this. Yeah, I need some help with this, right? And then, right, once we identify those things, we got to be willing to be in prayer about them, because that's where our ultimate strength is gonna come from. That's where the help's gonna come from. Praying for God's direct help in those areas. You got to start seeing yourself the way that God sees you.
Freed us from the slavery of addiction. Bless us in so many ways.
Like it talks about in the Bible, that unity that's going to bring people to Christ.
When you pray those prayers from a place of desperation.
No matter what is going on in my life, God has this covered.